The echo of the Great Hall still clung to Harry's ears when Cedric finally guided him into a quieter corridor. Hermione, Ron, Neville, Fred, George, and Ginny trailed close behind, all of them flushed from the chaos. Harry stopped in the middle of the passage, his chest tight, his fists trembling at his sides. The words burst out of him before he could stop them. "I didn't do it!" His voice cracked, echoing off the stone. "I didn't put my name in. I couldn't have. They all think I wanted this, that I'm chasing glory, but I didn't. I swear I didn't." The group exchanged glances. No one doubted him, but no one seemed to know what to say either. Harry dragged a hand through his hair, pacing. "Snape said it. He said it was an identification rune twisted into the parchment. Do you know how hard that is? That's advanced magic, older than anything we've been taught. Whoever did it was powerful, careful. They made it so the goblet thought it was me." He stopped, his voice breaking into frustration. "Why me? Why is it always me? First year, second year, third year, and now this. What have I done that someone wants me dead so badly they'd throw me into this?" His words came faster now, almost a rant, his breaths shallow. "Everyone's staring, calling me a cheat. The Ministry thinks I'm lying. Fleur hates me already. Karkaroff's out for blood, and now half the school wants me gone. How am I supposed to face this?" His legs gave way to exhaustion more than anything else, and he dropped into a chair against the wall, slumping forward, his head in his hands. The corridor fell into silence, but for his ragged breathing. Hermione knelt in front of him, reaching out gently. She laid a hand on his lap, leaning so he could see her earnest face. "Harry," she said softly, "listen to me. You are not alone in this. You won't face it alone. We're here for whatever comes. You don't have to carry it by yourself anymore." Harry's throat tightened. Ron stepped forward, his voice firm for once, not wavering. "She's right, mate. You're my best friend. Always will be. If they think you're in this alone, they're mad. You've got me." Neville, shifting nervously before squaring his shoulders, added, "And me. Plants, creatures, whatever they throw at you, I'll help however I can. You can count on it." Fred leaned against the wall with his arms folded, George beside him, both uncharacteristically serious. Fred said, "You've got us too. We'll build things to help you, think up tricks they'll never see coming." George nodded. "No trap's too clever for us to unravel. We'll make sure you're ready." Ginny, who had stayed quiet until now, stepped closer, her voice steady and sure. "I'm with you too, Harry. You'll need someone to duel with. Someone fast and sharp. That's me. I won't let you down." Harry looked up slowly. For the first time that night, he saw them clearly. Not just friends, not just classmates. 6 people who would stand with him, no matter what. His team. His voice was hoarse when he finally spoke. "You're all mad, you know that." He managed the ghost of a smile. "But thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you." Hermione's hand squeezed lightly on his lap, her eyes never leaving his. "You'll never have to find out." The others murmured their agreement, a quiet chorus of loyalty in the dim corridor. And Harry, exhausted, leaned back against the chair, the weight of dread still there, but no longer crushing him. Not with them at his side. Harry slept fitfully, plagued by half-dreams of flames and parchment, his scar prickling with heat. When he finally dragged himself down to breakfast, the Great Hall was already a cauldron of whispers. Every eye turned as he entered with Ron and Hermione at his side. Conversations died for a heartbeat, then swelled again, louder than before. Snatches of words drifted. Cheated. Contract. Chosen. On the Slytherin table, Draco Malfoy smirked broadly, already surrounded by a knot of whispering students. Didn't think the great Harry Potter needed rules like the rest of us, he called, loud enough to turn heads. Fred and George immediately stood from their seats at Gryffindor, puffing out their chests. "He's in the tournament," George declared. "Means Hogwarts has 2 champions. Twice the glory." "Twice the chance to crush you lot," Fred added, winking at Malfoy, who scowled but said nothing. The tension was broken only briefly when the post owl swooped in. One owl dropped the Daily Prophet directly onto the Gryffindor table, its headline already screaming in thick black ink. "Potter, cheater or chosen one?" Rita Skeeter's name glittered below it. A quick quotes quill sketch of Harry stared back, smirking arrogantly, though Harry had no memory of ever making such a face. The article beneath was a flood of insinuation, Potter's endless appetite for fame. Did Hogwarts conspire to give itself an advantage? Ministry concern at the breach of magical law. Hermione slammed the paper shut. "Absolute rubbish," she hissed, but the damage was done. Ravenclaws were reading over shoulders, Slytherin sniggered, and even some Hufflepuffs shot Harry uncertain looks despite Cedric's visible defence the night before. Harry clenched his jaw, staring at the tabletop, the whispers gnawing at his ears. His throat felt tight again, as if last night's panic had only been waiting. But Ron leaned closer, his voice fierce. "Ignore it. You've got us. They can say what they want." Neville nodded, surprisingly firm. "They don't know the truth. We do, and we'll prove it." Fred and George thumped their fists on the table in unison. "Exactly. Let them gossip. We'll make sure you show them all up in the first task." Ginny leaned across, her eyes blazing. "They'll regret ever doubting you, Harry. Just wait." Hermione touched his arm gently, her voice soft but unshakable. "We told you last night. You're not facing this alone, not ever." Harry swallowed hard, lifting his gaze at last. Around him sat the 6 who had promised to stand by him. Their loyalty cut through the din of whispers like sunlight through fog. Later that day, the Gryffindors and Slytherins filed in, the defence against the dark arts room buzzing with whispers about the tournament. Harry felt every eye drag across him, suspicion and jealousy heavy in the air. Draco leaned back in his chair, arms behind his head. "What a perfect morning it's been," he announced. "The slaves cooked up a glorious meal as ever. The coffee was black as the lake, and the prophet was a free clown show." Harry's fists clenched under the desk, but before he could retort, Malfoy added louder, "Hogwarts doesn't need 2 champions. We've already got one. Diggory's the real one, not a freak with a shitty battle scar they got from crying." That stung worse than the laughter. Even some Gryffindors glanced at Harry uncertainly. Ron turned scarlet, half rising in his chair. "Say that again, Malfoy! Enough!" Moody's roar shook the classroom. His magical eye locked on Malfoy, then word to Harry lingering. There was truth in one thing. The goblet did choose 2 names, Diggory's and Potter's, and both are bound. You think that makes Potter weak? No. It means someone powerful wanted him in. And when powerful wizards target you, he jabbed his staff against the floor, you'd better be ready to fight. Malfoy's smirk faltered, though he muttered something under his breath. Moody's magical eye spun wildly, then fixed on Harry, unblinking. "Don't waste time with fools who don't know what they're looking at, Potter. You've got bigger things to worry about." The rest of the class sat stiff, unsettled. Moody turned to the board and scratched jagged words in chalk. He slammed his staff against the floor, making several students jump. "One's out. You'll be duelling today, 1 against 1. You'll rotate opponents until I tell you to stop." There was a stunned silence. Usually it took weeks before a class saw anything more dangerous than a practice jinx. Moody sneered. "You think dark wizards wait for you to finish your homework before hexing you? No, they'll come at you from the first second. No warning, no mercy. So, duel." Pairs formed reluctantly at first. Wands flashed, jets of red and blue light streaked across the room. Neville yelped as he was disarmed by Pansy Parkinson. Ron nearly knocked over a desk when his stupefy ricocheted. Moody barked orders the entire time, pacing the rows like a restless predator. "Faster, Longbottom, faster! If you hesitate, you're dead. We don't need corpses cluttering the floor. You there, Crab? Don't just stand there like a lump. Attack! The enemy won't wait politely." As the drills rotated, Harry was pushed harder than the others. Moody gave him opponents who pressed his weaknesses. Fast-footed Blaze Zabini, who feinted constantly. Crab, who relied on brute force and wild hexes. And finally, a rematch with Malfoy, whose sharp counters nearly disarmed him twice. Harry flushed, his sleeve still smouldering from Malfoy's last hex. But Moody had already clunked away, jotting something down on a scrap of parchment, while his magical eye spun restlessly across the room. Harry's chest was heaving by the end, his sleeve scorched. Moody only grunted. "You favour Expelliarmus, Stupefy, and Fulgari," Moody muttered, loud enough for the class to hear. "Good instincts. But if those are the only cards in your deck, you'll be predictable. Predictable gets you killed. Build more weapons, Potter." Harry flushed, but Moody had already clunked away to correct a pair on the other side of the room. By the end of class, every student was sweating, bruised, or both. Desks had been shoved into the corners, the floor scuffed with scorch marks. The air reeked faintly of burnt parchment. Moody planted himself at the front, staff cracking against the floor for silence. His magical eye swept the room, lingering on each face. "Lesson 1, he rasped. "The dark arts don't wait. They don't care how clever your essays are. You block, you strike back, you think fast, or you end up in the ground. You want to live through this year. You'll need to fight like your life depends on it, because one day it will." The bell rang, but no one moved until Moody gave a dismissive wave. Students filed out slowly, murmuring to one another, some pale, some exhilarated. Ron muttered, "Best class we've ever had." Hermione's voice was tight. "He's completely unhinged." Harry said nothing. He couldn't stop thinking about Moody's words. Build more weapons. The week that followed was thick with unease. The once bustling corridors of Hogwarts rang now with sharp whispers, students parting around Harry like he carried some contagious curse. In the courtyards, tensions often boiled over, a Beauxbaton student shoving a Slytherin after an insult, Durmstrang lads squaring up against Gryffindors. Small skirmishes flared daily, leaving robes torn and pride bruised. Ministry officials, cloaked in dark green, now patrolled the grounds, their stern eyes making the castle feel less like a school and more like a garrison. It was in the midst of this new routine that Arthur and Molly Weasley arrived. A pair of ministry officials escorted them through the gates, where Arthur immediately began speaking with the Aurors about enchantments and security wards, his face intent but tired. Molly, on the other hand, scanned the courtyard until her eyes fell on her children, and Harry, standing uncertainly at their side. Her face softened into relief, and she hurried forward. Ron was caught in a fierce hug before he could say a word. Ginny was next, her protest muffled against Molly's shoulder. When she reached Harry, she paused only long enough to straighten his glasses before pulling him close. "You've grown thinner, dear," she said, her voice both scolding and full of fondness. Harry flushed but couldn't help smiling. Arthur clapped Fred and George on the shoulders, offered Harry a quiet nod of reassurance, then turned briskly back to his ministry escorts, already asking about the placement of protective charms along the forest perimeter. Molly, however, lingered, fussing with Ron's collar and telling all of them she'd volunteered as a counsellor for any student struggling with the tournament chaos. "There's too much fear in the air," she said firmly, "and I won't have young people carrying it all alone." Harry was still caught in Molly's embrace when a sudden flash lit the courtyard, leaving spots dancing in his vision. He blinked and pulled back, startled as a familiar drawl cut through the murmurs. My, what a lovely little scene," came the syrupy voice. Rita Skeeter swept forward, quill already twitching in her manicured hand, emerald green robes glittering in the autumn light. Her jewelled spectacles caught the sun as she gave Molly a smile so sharp it looked like it might cut. Molly straightened at once, bristling. "This isn't the time, Rita. Can't you see?" "Oh, but it is the time," Skeeter interrupted smoothly, already angling her quill as if it were alive. "Mandatory, in fact. Every champion must give a statement before the first task. Public interest, you understand. Transparency." She leaned in toward Harry, her perfume cloying. And who could resist the words of the boy who lived, surprise entrant into the tournament? Harry stiffened, his eyes flicking from Molly's protective glare to the Weasleys watching tensely nearby. He gave Molly a small, almost sheepish smile. "It's all right. Really, I'll be okay." "Harry," Molly began, but he gently pulled free, straightening his glasses as he turned to follow Rita. "I'll see you all later," he said firmly, giving Ron and Ginny a nod, Fred and George a half grin, before catching Arthur's steady, worried gaze. "I'll be fine." Skeeter, triumphant, swept him away toward the castle doors, her quick quotes quill already scratching furiously on parchment behind them. Molly watched them go, her arms folding tightly, lips pressed thin. The little side chamber smelled faintly of parchment and dust. Rita shut the door with a gentle click and, to Harry's surprise, softened her smile. The quick quotes. Quill hovered, waiting, but she didn't set it to parchment immediately. "You've had a hard week, haven't you?" she said, her voice low, almost kind. "Dragged into this tournament, everyone staring at you, doubting you. It must be exhausting." Harry blinked. No one had put it quite like that. "Yeah, a bit," he admitted cautiously. Rita leaned in, lowering her voice like they were sharing a secret. "You're only 14, still a child, really. But you've carried the weight of the world since you were a baby. Do you ever wish you could just be normal?" "Sometimes," Harry admitted. I didn't ask for any of this. It just happens." The quill began to scratch, but Rita didn't push. She reached out, lightly touching his hand. "And yet, here you are, standing up, again and again. That's real courage." A flicker of warmth stirred in Harry's chest. For once, someone was actually listening. Rita tilted her head, studying him. "But tell me, you're not really alone in this, are you? I've heard whispers about support groups forming around each champion. Who have you chosen to stand by you?" Harry hesitated, glancing at the floor. "Well, Ron, of course. Neville, Ginny, Fred, and George. Hermione, too." Rita's eyes gleamed, though her voice stayed soft. "How wonderful. Such loyalty. I'll make sure the world knows you're not as isolated as people think." She gave a soft sigh, lowering her voice. "Do you feel safe here at Hogwarts? With all the chaos at the World Cup, the Dark Mark, and now this tournament? You can be honest, off the record." Harry hesitated, then shrugged. "I trust Dumbledore, but it's hard. Sometimes I feel like I don't know who I can count on." Rita nodded gravely, reaching across to pat his hand. "That's very brave of you to admit. Thank you, Harry. I know this isn't easy, but You've given people hope. Let me help you show them the real boy behind the legend." When she finally stood, Harry felt oddly lighter, as though speaking had lifted some of the burden. She sent him off with a reassuring smile. "You did wonderfully. I'll make sure your story shines." The smell of toast and pumpkin juice filled the Great Hall, but Harry wasn't hungry. He sat slumped at the Gryffindor table, half listening to Ron complain about double herbology when a ripple of noise spread from the Ravenclaw end. Newspapers were being unrolled, pages flapping like restless wings. The Daily Prophet had arrived. "Oh," Fred muttered, leaning across the table. "Front page, with your face on it, mate." Harry turned, and his stomach sank. In bold type above a moving photograph of himself, scowling mid-duel in Moody's class, were the words, "Harry Potter, lonely boy or secret schemer?" Ron snatched it before Harry could. "Blimey, listen to this." He cleared his throat and read dramatically. "Young Harry Potter, cast unwillingly into the Triwizard Tournament, admits he never wanted glory. Yet, sources confirm he has handpicked a private clique of students to give him special advantages." Ron's voice grew higher with disbelief. "Friends or favours? Potter's so-called support group includes family connections, school pranksters, and a rumoured sweetheart." "What?" Hermione slammed down her goblet so hard pumpkin juice sloshed. She snatched the paper from Ron and read with growing fury. "Potter confesses trust in Hogwarts staff is shaken after recent disasters. Claims only a small circle of loyal companions stand between him and ruin. This is absolute slander." Neville Borsam, cheeks pink, leaned in. "Wait, she calls me dead weight. Says Harry keeps me around out of pity." He looked mortified. "She says I'm a mercenary," George reported cheerfully, reading over Hermione's shoulder. "Reckless, but useful. I rather like that, actually." "She called me lovesick," Ginny spat, red to the roots of her hair. "Desperate for attention. I've barely said 3 words in her presence." Hermione went pale. Her voice wavered as she read aloud. "Most shocking of all, Potter confesses he relies most heavily on the devotion of Hermione Granger, a plain but passionate companion who may be more than just a friend." The Gryffindor table erupted. Laughter from some, indignant gasps from others. Ron nearly spat his juice. "Plain but passionate companion? That's..." Hermione slammed the paper down. "That's libel, that's what it is," she snapped, her face scarlet now with anger instead of embarrassment. "I never said anything like that, and Harry never..." Harry buried his face in his hands. Whispers were rising all around the hall, stretching from table to table, 1,000 voices dissecting his secret circle, pointing, laughing, sneering. A few Durmstrang students jeered from across the hall. "Schemer! Potter! Needs his girlfriends to fight for him." A revolving thought in Harry's head through everything. "The photo? How did she get the photo?" Ron puffed out his chest. "We ought to get back at Skeeter so hard she can't show her face in public again." Fred leaned in, eyes gleaming. "Oh, I've already got ideas." Hermione looked as though she might explode. "She's trying to divide us. That's all this is. We cannot let her win." Harry sat silent for a moment, then slowly lifted his head. "I trusted her," he said quietly. "She made it sound like she cared, like she wanted to help me." His voice broke with bitter disbelief. "And now, this." The group fell into uneasy silence. All around them, the whispers continued to swell, the Prophet headline blazing from every table. Even the Durmstrang students were chuckling, all except Crumb, who was staring at Harry. Slowly, Crumb ripped his paper in half and began to walk toward their table. Victor Crumb stood there, his heavy frame looming, the murmurs around them dipping to a hush. His dark eyes slid to Hermione, not Harry. "This paper," he said, his accent thick. "Is it true?" Hermione straightened, heat rushing to her cheeks. "Of course not. It's all lies. That woman twists everything." She jabbed the prophet with her finger, crumpling the page. "Nothing in here is true." Crumb's jaw tightened. He muttered something in Bulgarian that sounded like a curse, his lips curling in disgust. "Rita, Skeeter, Vulture." Then, softer, almost apologetic, "I am sorry you must deal with this nonsense." But his eyes never left Hermione. Not once did he look at Harry, still staring at the photo of himself scowling on the front page. Crumb gave a curt nod to Hermione and turned away, his broad shoulders parting the crowd as he strode back toward the Durmstrang table. For a moment, silence lingered at the Gryffindor table. Then Fred leaned in, eyebrow arched. Was it just me? Or did he forget Harry even existed? "Didn't seem very interested in the rest of us either," George added, smirking. "Yeah," Ginny said flatly, arms crossed. "That was odd." Hermione shook her head, frowning. "I've spoken with him a few times. He's been polite, curious. Honestly, it's been positive." The twins exchanged a look. Ron raised an eyebrow. "Positive, eh?" Hermione huffed. "Don't be ridiculous." But her voice lacked conviction. The table drifted into speculation. About Crumb, about Skeeter, about what it all meant. But Harry wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on the headline. The words lonely, hero, or calculating schemer burning themselves into his thoughts. The laughter and whispers of the hall blurred into background noise. The next few days passed in a blur of whispers and stares. Harry couldn't cross a corridor without catching fragments of Skeeter's headline thrown back at him. Schemer, sweetheart, abandoned. Even with his friends close, the weight of 100 eyes seemed heavier than ever. Classes went on. Ministry officials prowled the halls, and Dumbledore's calm speeches did little to quiet the storm. On Thursday evening, Ron caught Harry by the sleeve outside the common room. He glanced up and down the corridor before speaking. "Hagrid's looking for you. Said it's important and, Ron lowered his voice further. "Bring your cloak." That alone was enough to make Harry's pulse quicken. Later that night, under the silvery shimmer of the invisibility cloak, Harry slipped down the silent corridors and out into the crisp air. Hagrid was waiting by his hut, lantern in hand, Fang at his side, eyes crinkling with relief when he spotted Harry's shadow pulling back the hood. "Good lad," Hagrid said, lowering his voice. "We've got summit to see." The night air was damp, cool, mist curling low around their boots as Hagrid's lantern bobbed through the darkness. Harry padded silently at his side beneath the invisibility cloak, careful to keep pace on the uneven ground. Fang's ears twitched at the sound of Harry's unseen steps, but Hagrid didn't seem to notice. "Strange times these are," Hagrid muttered, voice low, half to himself. "Castles packed with young witches and wizards from all over. You'd think it'd be nothing but excitement. Students learning from each other, sharing what they know. But instead it's all squabbles, tension, like a storm brewing under the roof." Harry adjusted his footing on a tree root, the cloak rustling softly. "There've been fights in the courtyards, the Slytherins and Durmstrang, even Ravenclaw and Beauxbaton." Hagrid let out a heavy sigh. "Aye, nothing more dangerous than young ones trying to prove themselves. Ministry folk strutting about, making everything worse. Don't remember Hogwarts ever feeling so on edge, not even back then." His voice caught slightly before he pushed on. Harry hesitated, then spoke quietly. "It hasn't been easy. People think I cheated. Some of them barely talk to me. Rita Skeeter twisted everything I said into a lie. Even the other champions. Well, Cedric's been good, but it feels like everyone's waiting for me to trip up." The lantern's glow threw Hagrid's broad face into shadow. but his eyes softened. Don't listen to all that, Harry. Folk always looking for someone to point at. But I know you. You don't go looking for this kind of trouble. It finds you. Harry managed a faint smile beneath the cloak. Feels like it always does. Hagrid chuckled, though it was tinged with sadness. Well, you've got me, at least. And your friends. More than some folk can say. That counts for a lot, Harry. Don't forget it. They walked on in silence for a few moments, the forest thinning until the first low growl carried on the wind. The air grew hotter, thick with smoke. Hagrid lifted his lantern a little higher. Time ye saw what you're facing, he said, his voice full of both pride and worry. The clearing opened suddenly, and Harry sucked in a breath beneath the cloak. 4 enormous enclosures loomed in the firelight, their iron bars glowing faintly with protective enchantments. Inside, shadows moved, massive, scaled, alive. The ground was scorched black, the air thick with smoke and sulphur. A Welsh green shifted with a guttural hiss, golden eyes reflecting the flames. In another pen, a Swedish short snout rippled silver blue scales as it exhaled a puff of glittering sparks. But it was the Hungarian horntail at the far end that made Harry's legs go weak. Vast wings folded tight, spiked tail lashing against the ground, each movement radiating raw menace. Charlie Weasley's voice rang across the clearing. "Careful, lads! Keep the fires steady!" He strode past, wand raised, his face taut with focus. Several dragon keepers followed, their uniforms marked with scorch marks and claw tears. None of them looked twice at Hagrid, lingering at the edge with his lantern, and certainly none of them saw the boy beneath the shimmering cloak. Hagrid's eyes shone as he watched the beasts. Beautiful, aren't they? Great creatures. Noble. Just don't cross 'em, mind. They'll roast you faster than ye can blink. Harry swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the horntail as it snapped its jaws against the bars. Sparks flying. That's mine, he thought, with sudden certainty, dread knotting in his stomach. Charlie barked more orders, moving deeper into the firelight. Hagrid muttered under his breath, as if to reassure himself as much as Harry. "You'll manage, lad. You always do. Just keep your nerve. Dragons smell fear." Harry didn't dare answer. He stayed perfectly still beneath the cloak, heart hammering, the roar of the horntail echoing in his bones. "Listen, Harry," Hagrid said quietly, as if sharing a secret with the trees. "Dragons, they're cleverer than most folk think. But they've got habits. You keep your distance from the head and tail both. It's the wings you want to watch. They lash when the beast feels cornered. Aim for the eyes if you must, but best trick is distracting them. They hate sudden noise, sudden movement. Throws 'em off." Harry filed every word away, his mind racing with possibilities. Before he could speak, a tall silhouette appeared on the path ahead. The lantern's glow caught silver hair, and Hagrid froze. Madame Maxime glided toward them, her robe swishing gracefully, her face shadowed. "Hagrid," she said in her deep, accented voice, raising a hand. "I was only taking air. You must not mention to anyone that I was out tonight." Hagrid went red beneath his beard, nearly dropping the lantern. "Oh, of course. Not a word, Maxime. Not a word. Ya can trust me." He gave a nervous laugh, trying and failing to sound casual. "Lovely night, innit? Suits ya." Harry stifled a grin beneath the cloak. Maxime's dark eyes softened, though her expression remained regal. "Oui, a fine night." She gave the faintest nod before continuing past them, her towering form fading into the mist. Hagrid stood rooted for a moment, staring after her with a dazed expression, before clearing his throat loudly and resuming his stride. "Right, well, dragons. You'll be fine, Harry. Just fine." Harry nearly laughed out loud, but held it in, his heart lighter despite the terror of what lay ahead. By the time they reached Hagrid's hut, the lantern light spilling across the pumpkin patch, Harry tugged the cloak tighter around himself. Without a word, he slipped away toward the castle. The fat lady's portrait swung shut behind him minutes later, and Harry climbed into the quiet common room, his head still full of fire, wings and Hagrid stammering. He had a secret now, one that burned in his chest as hot as dragon flame. The abandoned classroom smelled faintly of chalk and dust. Desks had been shoved to the sides, leaving a wide space in the middle where Harry's friends gathered in a loose circle. The door was locked, the windows muffled with a silencing charm. Harry stood in front of them, the weight of last night still heavy in his chest. Everyone's eyes turned to him. "Thanks for coming," he said. His voice was steady, though his palms were damp. "I saw the first task. It's dragons." Gasps echoed around the circle. Ginny swore under her breath. Neville's eyes went wide, while Fred and George grinned like it was Christmas morning. "Bloody brilliant," Fred said, thumping George on the shoulder. "Bloody terrifying," Hermione snapped, arms crossed tight. "Dragons, Harry! That's insane!" Harry raised his hands. "I know, but Hagrid gave me a few tips. Keep out of reach of the head and tail. Wings lash if they feel cornered. They hate sudden noise and movement. If I can distract it, maybe I can grab the egg." Ron leaned forward eagerly. "Flying! That's the answer. You've got your broom, haven't you? Summon it. The dragon won't be able to match your speed in the air." Hermione frowned. "That's actually reasonable, but Accio is tricky over long distances. You'd need to be precise under pressure." Harry nodded. "I'll practice." "A lot." Neville cleared his throat nervously. "There's also plants. Some of them release scents that disorient magical beasts. If you threw one near the dragon, even for a moment, it might give you an opening." He pulled a small notebook from his bag, flipping pages. "I've been studying them. I can find something that won't backfire." "Backfire?" Ginny said skeptically. "Well, some plants enrage beasts instead of distracting them," Neville admitted. "But I'll figure it out." Fred dug into his pocket and pulled out a small, smoke-belching sphere. "Or you could use one of ours. Portable swamp bombs. Toss one and you'll have cover in a second." George grinned. "Or a distraction. Dragons don't like not seeing their prey." Hermione rolled her eyes. "Or Harry could suffocate himself in a cloud of swamp gas." Ginny spoke up, arms folded confidently. "You'll need someone to duel with, Harry. Practice fast reflexes. Dragons won't just breathe fire. They'll snap, lash, use everything at once. I can throw jinxes at you until you get better at dodging." Her eyes glinted. "And I won't go easy." Harry managed a grin. "Wouldn't expect you to." Hermione softened, stepping closer. "Harry, it's not just spells. You'll need control, focus. The more chaotic it gets, the calmer you have to be. If you panic, I'll be toast," Harry finished with a shrug. "I know. That's why I need all of you. I can't do this alone." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, Ron clapped him on the back. "We're with you. Always." Neville nodded shyly. "I'll start looking up those plants." Fred tossed Harry the smoke sphere. "We'll fine-tune a few gadgets just for dragon-sized problems." Ginny smirked. "You better be ready to get hexed until you drop." Hermione gave a thin smile. "I'll drill you on the summoning charm. If it takes 100 tries, so be it." George raised an eyebrow. "What about us? No love for our inventions?" "You'll get your chance," Harry said, pocketing the sphere. "Trust me." As their laughter filled the classroom, Harry felt the knot of dread in his chest loosen, just a little. He was still terrified, but looking at the 6 faces around him, he knew he wasn't walking into this fight alone. The following afternoon found Harry in an empty classroom with Hermione, books and cushions piled high around them. She stood, wand in hand, her expression sharp with determination. "Again," she ordered. Harry pointed his wand at a chair across the room. "Accio chair." The chair jolted an inch and tipped over. Hermione groaned, marched over and righted it. "You're yanking, not summoning. It's not about brute force, it's intention," she demonstrated, calling a book neatly into her hand. Harry scowled, then tried again, picturing his firebolt instead of a chair. The word rang sharper this time, and the chair skidded across the floor to his feet. Hermione's face split into a grin. "There! See? You can do it!" Harry grinned back despite the sweat on his brow. "You're a slave driver! And you'll thank me when you're not barbecue," she shot back, but her eyes glowed with pride. By the evening, he was in the courtyard with Ginny, sweat dripping down his face as she fired hex after hex. "You're too predictable!" Ginny barked, sending a jinx sizzling past his ear. Harry dove, rolled, and fired back a stupefy, but she sidestepped easily. "What? So I should just stand still?" he shouted. She grinned, hair flying as she launched another spell. "Better than that same dive every time." When a Jellylegs jinx caught him, he stumbled, laughing despite himself. Ginny helped him up, smirking. "Don't, just dodge, counter." This time Harry raised his wand and blasted out a shield charm so strong it rattled the bushes. Ginny's eyes widened before she gave a grudging nod. "Much better." The class was buzzing before Moody even entered. Copies of the Daily Prophet rustled on desks, Rita Skeeter's latest piece smeared across the front page. Harry's name glared in bold type beneath the charmed quill sketch of him looking much younger and more anxious than he felt. Draco Malfoy, lounging back in his chair, smirked as he read aloud in a sing-song voice. "Lonely Harry Potter leans on the love of a school sweetheart, Miss Hermione Granger, the brainy beauty." He looked up, his grey eyes glittering. "What a sap! Didn't know you had time for snogging while you were sneaking your way into a Cedric's tournament." The Slytherins laughed. Harry's ears burned. The words felt like claws scraping down his skin. Rita's voice, so warm and coaxing during the interview, had twisted into this mockery. He wanted to sink into the floor. "Sounds like you want to snog Cedric. Stop acting like you two are close, or even a first-name basis." Hermione snapped, cheeks blazing. "He does. Matter of fact, my father introduced us," Malfoy drawled. Around him, Pansy, Crabbe and Goyle looked at him, brows furrowed. "Go write him another love letter for Skeeter to publish." "Quiet!" Moody's bark cracked across the room like thunder. His staff hit the floor with a violent clack, and his magical eye whirled to pin Draco in place. "Malfoy, if I wanted mindless squealing, I would have wrote to your spineless father, but since he's busy wiping the minister's bottom, I'd keep a pen of pigs in here. 50 points from Slytherin. And if you want attention, I'll make sure you get it in detention." The smirk slid from Draco's face as the entire classroom rumbled with laughter. Even Draco's friends were snickering. Moody's scarred mouth twisted into something that might have been a grin, though it looked more like a snarl. "Dark wizards will humiliate you before they kill you. If you want to answer, Potter, answer by surviving." He thumped his staff again, harder. "Wands out. Today, we test your situational awareness. This classroom is now your battlefield." With a wave of his wand, the room transformed. Desks stacked into jagged walls, shadows rippled across conjured curtains, and glowing blue sparks drifted in the air like fireflies. From behind the obstacles came sudden bursts of hexes, invisible hands firing without warning. "Obstacle course outside," Moody growled. "Hidden attackers, blind angles, you dodge, you block, you think." Turn your back. You're stunned. Stay alert, or stay down. The first student stumbled through the rocky circle arena outside the castle grounds. Pansy Parkinson shrieked as a jinx clipped her shoulder. Neville ducked but turned his head too far and was immediately hexed in the back. Moody snarled, "Dead, Longbottom, corpses don't win house points." When it was Harry's turn, his pulse quickened. The grounds was alive with sudden flashes of spellfire, hexes striking from nowhere. He remembered Ginny's voice. Don't just dodge, counter. He remembered Hermione's drilling. Intention, not force. He darted, shield raised, firing back when he caught the flicker of movement behind a desk. Halfway through, Malfoy leapt from behind a curtain, wand raised. Expelliarmus! Harry reacted before he thought. Expulso! The blasting curse hit Malfoy's shield and detonated, flinging him back into a tree with a crash. Gasps filled the room. Even Harry's hand shook. He hadn't been sure the spell would even work. Moody's staff slammed down. His magical eye whirled wildly, then fixed on Harry. That's it! Potter, situational awareness, improvisation. You used what you learned instead of what you were taught. Remember that. He swept his gaze over the rest of the class. The rest of you, take notes. Build more weapons, or you'll be carrion for the crows. By the end, the grass was littered with scorch marks and moaning students. Rocks were overturned, the smell of smoke heavy in the air. Class ended, but Moody's voice cut through again. Out! Potter, stay! The others filed out, whispering. Malfoy shot Harry a poisonous glare as he limped past. Harry avoided Hermione's worried glance. When the door shut, Moody's magical eye whirled in every direction, as though scanning for eavesdroppers. Then, his scarred face turned toward Harry. You thanked me in there with your spell work, Moody said gruffly. Don't. You did that yourself. Harry hesitated. But your lessons, they're helping. Moody gave a gravelly laugh. I just shove you through the door. You're the one walking through. His tone hardened. Now, how are you preparing for the task? Harry swallowed. Something in Moody's stare told him not to lie. I've been working on Accio. Hermione thinks it's my best chance. Ginny's been helping me duel as well. I still have lessons with my other members, so I have options. Moody's eye swiveled, unblinking. Options are good, but don't fool yourself. A pouch of leaves won't save you from fire. A bauble from those twins might explode in your face. In the end, it's you, your wand, and your nerve. Sentiment won't keep you alive. Harry bristled. They're trying to help me. Moody leaned closer, voice dropping to a rasp. And that's fine. Let them feel useful. But when you're in the pit, it'll be you and the dragon. Remember that, Potter? Alone. Always alone. He straightened suddenly, slamming his staff. Keep at it. Don't let up. You think you've practiced enough? Practice again. Harry nodded slowly, unsettled. As he walked out, Rita's twisted article burned in his mind. But it was Moody's words that lodged deeper. Alone. Always alone. I suppose he's right in that sense, Harry thought. At the end of the day, I'll be looking into the dragon's eye, not them. Later that week, the damp, heavy air of the greenhouse wrapped around Harry like a blanket. The glass panes dripped with condensation, and the earthy smell of soil and sap clung to every breath. Neville stood at a workbench, sleeves rolled up, his hair sticking damply to his forehead as he cradled a thick-stemmed plant with deep purple leaves that looked like velvet. This is scented stink fern, Neville explained, his voice almost reverent. Dragons hate it. The smell irritates their noses and eyes. If you toss it close, not at them, mind, it might give you a few seconds to act. Just a few. Any closer and it could enrage them instead. Harry leaned forward, curious despite the growing knot in his stomach, and sniffed. He reeled back instantly, coughing. "Merlin, that's foul! Smells worse than Uncle Vernon's socks after Sunday roast." Neville laughed, an honest, warm sound Harry rarely heard from him in class. "Perfect. That means it's healthy." He tucked the fern carefully into a small pouch, tying it with meticulous care before setting it aside. "I'll dry and grind it, make a small satchel you can toss during the task. It won't stop a dragon, but it might turn its head or make it rear back." Harry straightened, eyebrows raised. "That's brilliant, Neville. Honestly, I never would have thought of it." Neville flushed pink, ducking his head. "Well, plants have their uses. Everyone always thinks it's about wands and spells, but sometimes it's what grows under your feet that saves you." He hesitated, then added more quietly, "You don't have to be the fastest or the strongest, Harry. You just have to be clever. Use what others overlook." Harry gave him a grateful look, a genuine smile tugging at his lips. "You sound like Professor Sprout." Neville's ears went red, but he smiled back, pride flickering across his face. She'd say the same thing. And she'd tell you this too. Plants don't win by being flashy. They win by surviving. Harry tucked the pouch into his pocket. The stink faint but sharp. For the first time, he realised Neville wasn't just good at herbology. He was giving Harry an edge no spell could. Harry gave Neville a friendly slap on the back before heading out of the greenhouse. He needed to get his potion books before going down to the Dogons, which meant heading back to the common room. The late afternoon sun filtered through the high windows of the courtyard, gilding the flagstones in amber. Students lingered in clusters, their voices carrying, but Harry's eyes fixed on the pair ahead. Cedric Diggory and Cho Chang seated together on the steps. Cedric had a book open across his knees, though it looked forgotten as Cho leaned in, laughing softly at something he'd said. For a moment, Harry almost turned back. Interrupting them felt wrong, intrusive. But then he remembered the dragon's roar, the hiss of fire licking at stone. His conscience gave him no choice. He drew a breath and walked forward. "Cedric! Wait!" Both turned at once. Cedric's face broke into easy surprise. "Harry, what's up?" Cho tilted her head slightly, dark eyes settling on him with curiosity. Harry's mouth was dry, but he forced the words out quickly. "It's dragons. The first task. It's dragons. I thought you should know." Cedric blinked, stunned into silence. For a moment the courtyard noises faded, as though the words hung between them in heavy air. Then he shut the book gently, studying Harry with a seriousness that cut through the golden calm of the evening. "You didn't have to tell me that," Cedric said at last, his voice low. "You could have kept it to yourself." "Most people would have." Harry shrugged, trying to seem casual, though his heart thudded. "Fair's fair. We're all in this together. Felt wrong not to say anything." Cho had been quiet, watching him closely. Now she spoke, her voice thoughtful. "That was really decent of you. Braver than keeping it to yourself, in a way." Her gaze lingered on him just a moment longer than expected, and Harry felt a warmth creep up his neck. Cedric smiled faintly, clapping Harry on the shoulder. "I'll remember this, and I owe you one." Harry shifted under his hand, embarrassed but strangely lighter. His friends had trained him, made him sharper, but it was this choice to act fairly. That felt truest. "Anyway," Harry muttered, stepping back, "just thought you should know. I'll let you get back to—" He nodded vaguely at Cedric's book. Cho smiled, the corners of her mouth lifting. "You're silly, Harry Potter." The dungeon was thick with heat and smoke, the kind that clung to the back of your throat and made your eyes sting. Steam rose in great clouds from cauldrons lining the room, carrying with it the sharp tang of crushed herbs and the metallic bite of ground scales. Snape glided to the front, black robes sweeping like wings. He didn't bother with greetings. After weeks of watching most of you fail at brewing potions that a competent first year should manage, he said, his voice slicing the air, we will attempt something marginally more useful today. A draught of fire protection. Correctly brewed, it will grant the drink a temporary resistance to magical flame. Incorrectly brewed. His mouth curled into something like a smile. And you may enjoy a most intimate burning sensation, inside and out. There was a nervous shuffle of parchment. The Slytherins smirked, the Gryffindors frowned. You have 1 hour. Begin. Ingredients floated down onto each table. Jars of powdered salamander scale, bundles of belladonna roots, and small vials of shimmering golden liquid that caught the dungeon light like molten sunlight. Harry set to work, reading the directions twice before adding the salamander scales. The powder hissed in the cauldron like water on a skillet. He stirred carefully, remembering Hermione's endless reminders. Consistency, precision, patience. Beside him, Ron frowned at the text. It says stir, counterclockwise. I've been going clockwise. Then, change it, Hermione snapped, already several steps ahead, her potion a steady, pale orange. Honestly, Ron, it's written in the book. Across the room, Draco Malfoy's voice carried smugly. Careful, Weasley, you'll set your eyebrows on fire, though I suppose no one would notice the improvement. The Slytherin sniggered. Snape swept down the aisle, pausing by Harry's cauldron. Harry kept his head down, bracing for the usual sneer. Instead, Snape's voice came low and cutting, meant for Harry alone. 3 stirs too many, and you'll blister yourself from within. Pay attention. Harry froze, then adjusted, carefully, precisely. The liquid shimmered, smoothing into a deep copper glow. Snape moved on without another word. Robes, billowing. Ron gave Harry a questioning look, but Harry shook his head quickly and went back to work. By the end of the lesson, several cauldrons were spewing foul smoke. Seamus's brew let out a loud pop and splattered purple goo across his desk. Neville's potion fizzed violently, and Snape snarled, vanishing it with a flick of his wand. Pathetic, Snape said, his voice carrying across the room. If this were battle, half of you would be ashes already. His eyes lingered on Harry's vial, steady, copper red, exactly as the book described. He said nothing, but his expression flickered, just once before turning cold again. As the class packed up, Harry noticed his potion vial was sitting on the edge of Snape's cluttered desk. The professor was hunched over, grading his fellow classmates' reports, mumbling insults under his breath as he marked Neville's report with blazing red marks. Harry calmly but swiftly took the copper vial and walked away, praying Snape didn't notice. The dungeon doors slammed behind them with a hollow thud, and the 3 of them started up the cold corridor. Harry's bag clinked faintly with each step, the sound muffled by stone, but noticeable enough that Ron squinted at him. What's that? Ron asked. Harry glanced around. The hall was empty, then pulled his bag open just enough to show the copper vial gleaming inside. I took it, my potion. Ron stopped dead, his ears going red. You what? His voice cracked off the walls. Are you barking mad? Harry explained what happened and how he slipped the potion in without him noticing. Hermione's eyes widened, but instead of horror, a spark of admiration lit her face. You managed to slip it off his desk without him stopping you. She lowered her voice half in awe. That's brilliant, Ron gaped at her. Brilliant? It's suicide. Snape's probably hexing Harry's name into a voodoo doll as we speak. Harry tightened the strap of his bag. It's mine. I brewed it right, better than anyone else in class. Why should he get to keep it? Just to sneer and chuck it away. I made it, so it's mine. Ron threw up his hands. Unbelievable. First, you get your name spat out of the goblet. Now you're nicking potions from under Snape's nose. Ron, Hermione cut in, her voice firmer now. Harry's right. If he brewed it perfectly, then it is his. And besides, if it works the way Snape said, it might actually be useful later. Maybe more useful than Snape ever intended. Harry shot her a grateful look, then squared his shoulders. I'm keeping it. If Snape wants it back, he can come and take it. The fire burned low in the common room, throwing flickering shadows against the walls. Harry sat at the centre of a loose circle of friends, cushions pulled close together, parchment and odd gadgets scattered between them. Fred and George had commandeered the lesson, each twin grinning as though nerves didn't exist. All right, Potter, Fred said, tossing him a small brass sphere that whirred faintly in his hand. Dragon Dazzler 3000. Aim, throw and pray. 5 seconds of blindness if you're lucky. More if you're very lucky, George added. Or less if you're us. Harry caught it clumsily, holding it at arm's length. And if it explodes early? Then you'll be dazzling yourself, Fred said cheerfully. Which, honestly, might work, George finished. Ron groaned. Brilliant. The plan is to blind Harry or blind the dragon. Comforting odds. Ginny snorted, leaning back on her cushion. Better than nothing. And you should see the jinxes Harry's finally managing. Still embarrassing, he can't keep with the third year. Harry tossed a cushion at her. She caught it and laughed. Neville reached into his satchel and pulled out the pouch he'd prepared. I've packed the stink fern carefully, sealed until you need it. Break the wax and throw it close enough, and it should irritate the dragon's senses without hitting you back. He blushed slightly at all the eyes on him. It's not perfect, but it'll help. It's brilliant, Neville, Harry said firmly. Hermione gave a small approving nod, the corner of her mouth twitching toward a smile. It really is. All of this is. For a while they worked through the plan. Who would shout what? When Harry would throw? How everything could change based on the dragon. The talk circled from serious to silly. Ron comparing the dragon to Crumb's nose. Ginny threatening to hex Harry's broom if he got himself killed. Fred and George staging dramatic reenactments of Harry fainting in the arena. Laughter spilled over the low firelight, warming the room more than the flames. For once, the weight pressing down on Harry's chest eased. When the noise quieted, Harry looked around at them all. Ron, Hermione, Neville, Ginny, Fred, George. Faces tired, but alight. Every one of them here for him. His throat tightened. He stopped, ran a hand through his hair and tried again. I don't know how to thank you. Any of you. I couldn't have got this far without you, and I mean that. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'll remember this. All of you. For a moment, the fire popped, filling the silence. Then Fred cleared his throat dramatically. You know, this is the most I've seen him ask for help before. Feels like a fever dream. Hermione raised a glass of pumpkin juice. I'll cheers to that. The group laughed again. Harry smiled as he flicked his wand and levitated the glass to him, downing the cup. Hermione took her wand out and turned the cup into an essay Harry wrote second year that had a failing grade. He crumpled it up and threw it back, which made both of them laugh. It was only for a moment, but Harry felt goosebumps on his hand. The castle stirred long before dawn. By breakfast, the air was so thick with tension that even the enchanted ceiling seemed unsettled. Clouds shifting restlessly above the Great Hall, sun breaking through only in fleeting shafts. Students ate in fits and starts, whispers buzzing across the tables. Ravenclaws speculated on what the tasks might be. Slytherins loudly backed Crumb and Cedric. Hufflepuffs wore yellow badges with "Diggory is our champion" in glittering letters. Draco was wearing the badge as well. The Gryffindor table was a blur of nervous energy. every eye flicking to Harry, who tried and failed to force down toast. "Eat," Hermione told him firmly, sliding a bowl of porridge his way. "You'll need the energy." Harry tried a spoonful, but it turned to paste in his mouth. At the staff table, the tension was no lighter. Dumbledore sat upright, grave and watchful, speaking in low tones with McGonagall. Fudge, planted at his side, was already beaming at journalists, his booming laugh jarring in the heavy hall. Barty Crouch Sr. bent stiffly over a sheaf of parchments, giving brisk orders to a pair of ministry aides, while Karkaroff and Madame Maxime glared frostily at each other. When the time came, ministry officials rose and clapped their hands for order. Arthur Weasley was among them, his face drawn but determined. "All students will proceed in lines to the arena," he announced, voice carrying over the din. "You will be escorted in groups by ministry staff. No stragglers, no wandering. Follow instructions exactly." That set off another wave of muttering. "Like we're toddlers," Draco Malfoy sneered as the Slytherins fell into line. He walked past Cedric and clasped him on the back, wishing him luck, to which Cedric gave an awkward nod of thanks. Draco was about to say something else when his father yanked him forward, almost pushing him out of the hall. But as they spilled out into the courtyard, the scale of the day became clear. Enchanted banners waved overhead, shifting between the crests of the three schools. Aurors patrolled the grounds, their wands at the ready. A team of ministry handlers worked in tight formation to herd the students down toward the arena, every bit as strict as if they were leading a procession of convicts. Hogwarts students jostled against Durmstrang boys, taunts flying. "Try not to faint at the sight of real magic," one sneered in a thick accent. Fred muttered something sharp back, and George had to pull him away before sparks actually flew. The Beauxbatons girls swept along in shimmering cloaks, ignoring the chaos around them. Fleur, walking at their head, held her chin high, but Harry could see the tightness in her face. Arthur strode among the officials, calling for order with calm authority. At one point, he passed close by Harry and gave him a subtle nod, quiet reassurance in the storm. By the time the students reached the outer gates, the noise of the crowd was thunderous. The arena loomed ahead, a massive coliseum carved into the earth, walls high and warded with spells that shimmered faintly in the morning light. Lines split into sections. Hogwarts students were led to their stands under McGonagall's hawk-like supervision. Durmstrang clustered under Karkaroff's sharp eye, their red uniforms stark against the pale sky. Beauxbatons took their places, with elegant composure, though Harry heard Fleur muttering under her breath in French, her nerves slipping through the facade. The canvas walls muffled the roar of the crowd outside, though the sound still pressed in, a living wave of noise. Harry sat stiffly on a low bench, heart hammering against his ribs, Cedric beside him with that steady calm Harry had come to rely on. Fleur paced furiously, muttering in French, while Crumb hunched in silence, broad shoulders bent as though he bore the weight of the entire arena. Then the tent flap burst open. "Harry!" Hermione slipped inside, cheeks flushed from the cold. Before he could react, she threw her arms around him in a fierce hug. The scent of parchment and ink clung to her robes, her voice low in his ear. "I know the plan will work, but my heart is pounding out of my chest. I just wanted to say you'll be brilliant. You've worked so hard for this. Just be careful." Harry blinked, stunned, then hugged her back, feeling the warmth of her presence chase away some of the chill in his stomach. A sudden flash made him flinch. Rita Skeeter stood in the corner, quick quotes. Quill already scratching away on its pad, her smile sharp as a knife. "How touching," she purred. "Young love in the face of danger." Harry jerked back, face burning. "That's not—" But Skeeter only arched a brow. Behind her, Crumb's dark eyes had fixed on Hermione, his jaw tight, expression unreadable. Before Harry could speak, the flap opened again. This time, it was Dumbledore, Bagman, and Barty Crouch Sr., their presence filling the small tent like a storm. "Champions," Dumbledore said warmly, eyes sweeping the group, "you have prepared for today with courage. Now it is time." Bagman clapped his hands, far too cheerful. Yes, splendid show we've got lined up. Each of you will face a dragon." Fleur froze mid-step, eyes wide. "Quoi? Dragons?" Cedric's brows shot up, though he masked it quickly. Harry forced his face to stay still, acting as though the news had just landed like a thunderclap. "Dragons!" Crouch Sr. confirmed coldly, his voice clipped. "Each of you will retrieve a golden egg. The task will test not only skill, but nerve." Seeing Fleur's stricken face, Dumbledore lifted a hand. "Do not let fear overtake you. The Ministry has placed multiple safeguards. The dragons are closely monitored and bound. If at any moment your life is in danger beyond recall, the task will be halted." "You will not die here today," Crouch Sr. added brusquely. "Do not insult the Ministry by doubting our preparations." That did little to settle Harry's nerves, or Hermione's as she squeezed his arm, but Cedric gave him a reassuring nod. Fleur muttered darkly under her breath. Crumb said nothing, though his eyes flicked toward Hermione again, before lowering to the ground. Dumbledore's gaze shifted, settling on the lone girl among them. "Miss Granger," he said kindly, "this tent is for champions only." Hermione flushed scarlet. "Of course, Professor, I only wanted to—" "I know." Dumbledore's smile softened, and he guided her gently toward the flap. "Come now, let's check if the concessions have any assorted sour strips. My treat." Bagman jingled a velvet pouch. "Now, for fairness, you'll draw lots." One by one, the champions reached inside. Fleur's pale fingers drew a twitching Welsh green. Crumb's heavy hand pulled a Chinese fireball that spat sparks. Cedric revealed a silver-blue Swedish short snout, and Harry's heart pounded as he closed his hand around something hot and leathery. He pulled free a Hungarian horntail, its wings flaring, jaws snapping at the air. "I knew it," Harry thought. The roar of the crowd outside swelled like a wave. Cedric leaned close, his voice steady even as the noise mounted. "Whatever happens, Harry, we've got this. You're not alone in there." Harry managed a thin smile. "Good luck, Cedric." Cedric squeezed his shoulder once, firm and brotherly. "You too." The flap rustled with the cold wind. Outside, Bagman's voice boomed magically over the arena, calling Fleur's name. The first task had begun. The canvas rustled with every gust of wind, the noise of the crowd swelling and breaking like waves on rock. Harry sat rigid on the bench, staring at the horntail figurine in his hand as though it might bite him for real. Outside, Bagman's magically amplified voice rang out, "Ladies and gentlemen, your first champion from Beauxbatons Academy of Magic, Fleur Delacour." The tent shuddered with the answering roar. Fleur drew a sharp breath, squared her shoulders, and swept out, every inch the part of a Vila descendant. Chin lifted, eyes blazing with determination. Silence fell inside. Then came a flurry of sounds from the arena. The distant roar of a dragon, the scream of flame, gasps from thousands of throats. Harry clenched his fists. The noises swelled and broke. Then, after what felt like an eternity, the crowd erupted in thunderous cheers. "She did it," Cedric murmured, more to himself than anyone else. His voice was steady, but his hand flexed at his side. Minutes later, Bagman's voice boomed again. "Next, from Durmstrang Institute, Victor Crumb." Crumb grunted, stood, and strode from the tent without a word. Harry followed him with his eyes uneasy. The canvas flap fell shut, muffling the renewed cheers. What followed was chaos. The dragon's roar shook the earth. flames roared so loud the tent poles rattled. Harry thought he heard spells crack like whips, sharp shouts, then a crash that made Fleur's abandoned stool topple over. "Bloody hell," Ron muttered under his breath from just outside the canvas, sneaking close with Ginny, Harry knew, to listen. Then, an eruption of applause. Crumb had succeeded too. Silence fell once more. Cedric stood, his face calm, though Harry saw the twitch of his jaw. "Good luck," Harry said. Cedric gave him a firm nod, clapping him once on the shoulder. "See you on the other side." He walked out to Bagman's booming introduction. "From Hogwarts, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Cedric Diggory." The crowd roared. Harry strained to hear, heart hammering. The short snout bellowed, spells cracked, and the audience gasped in unison. Harry bit his lips so hard it hurt. Then the cheers rose like thunder, long and rolling. "He made it," Harry whispered, though Cedric wasn't there to hear him. Relief and dread twisted together in his stomach. Now it was his turn. The flap lifted, and Bagman's jubilant voice carried through. "And finally, our youngest competitor, also from Hogwarts, Harry Potter." Harry opened the tent flap and was blinded by the midday sunlight. His eyes adjusted and took in the scene. The roar of the crowd swallowed Harry whole as he stepped into the arena. The Colosseum stretched vast around him, every seat filled with waving banners and screaming voices of support and boos. Ministry wizards lined the perimeter, wands raised, Arthur Weasley among them shouting brisk orders to reinforce the wards. And at the centre, the Horntail. It crouched low, tail lashing, scales black as iron. Its eyes burned with amber fire, already fixed on him. Smoke curled from its nostrils, carrying the sharp tang of scorched earth. Harry's stomach flipped, but then his eyes caught on the terrain. Jagged rocks, scorched ridges, and a single high outcrop near the nest. His breath hitched. He knew this place. Moody's obstacle drills, the ones that had felt so strange, suddenly clicked into focus. The arena was the same layout. Harry's eyes darted to the staff stands. Moody's scarred mouth curved into a grin, and he gave a deliberate wink. "Accio the broom!" Hermione's voice shrieked from the Gryffindor section, cutting through the din. Harry snapped up his wand. "Accio firebolt!" The broom streaked into the arena, through the cage, and came like a lightning bolt, and he vaulted onto it just as the Horntail lunged. Its tail whipped the ground where he'd been standing, sending a spray of dirt and stone into the air. The crowd gasped. Harry shot upward, air tearing at his robes. The dragon's roar followed him into the sky. It reared back, tail smashing the ground, with a sound like a felled tree. Dirt and sparks rained upward. "Patterns! Don't fly straight!" Ron's voice cut through the din, frantic. Harry banked left, then spiraled down in a corkscrew, the firebolt straining under the dive. He yanked out at the last second, flames blasting past his shoulder. The crowd roared, half in fear, half in awe. He circled again, breathing hard, the Horntail's golden eyes tracking him. Sweat slid down his temples. This wasn't Quidditch. This was life or death. The dragon reared, wings snapping wide. A gust of wind knocked Harry sideways. He nearly clipped the arena wall. Then Neville's shout, "Now! Throw the stink fern!" Harry fumbled in his pouch, pulled the leafy bundle and hurled it. It burst into foul green vapour right under the dragon's nose. The Horntail hissed as Neville's pouch of scented stink fern burst under its snout, a foul green vapour rising thick into the air. The dragon reeled back, eyes watering, its massive tail striking sparks as it thrashed against the ground. Harry seized the moment, diving low. For a brief, heart-stopping second, the golden egg gleamed in the nest ahead, within reach. But the Horntail slammed back down, massive claws spreading protectively over the eggs, its head lowered, smoke pouring from its nostrils as it locked on Harry again. Harry's stomach dropped. It wasn't going to move. "Force it back, Harry!" Fred's voice bellowed, and George echoed, "Blind it!" Harry hurled the dazzler. It burst in a storm of white sparks. The horntail staggered, roaring, eyes flashing shut, but only for a heartbeat. When it opened them again, it didn't retreat. It attacked. The dragon went wild. Claws ripped gouges in the earth as it swung blindly at the sparks. Its tail slashed in a broad arc, clipping the stand's wards and sending a shimmer of protective magic cascading across the sky. The crowd screamed. "Left! Dodge left, you idiot!" Ginny's voice shrieked. Harry pulled hard on the firebolt, weaving between the flailing claws, heat blasting across his face with every miss. He fired hexes desperately, Stupefy, Impedimenta, but they bounced harmlessly off its scales. The horntail roared again, smoke building in its throat. Harry ducked behind the tallest rock outcrop, chest heaving, firebolt hovering close. The dragon loomed above, flames spilling from its jaws. Every tactic they drilled, every plan, nothing worked. His friends shouted from the stands, Ron screaming flight patterns, Hermione shrieking for him to shield, Neville yelling about more plants, Fred and George urging another dazzler, Ginny barking for him to dodge. Their voices overlapped, frantic, desperate. Harry pressed his back against the stone, his lungs choking on the smoke. For a heartbeat, he closed his eyes. "You're not alone," Cedric had told him. But Moody's growl cut through the memory. "When you're in the pit, it'll be you and the dragon. Remember that, Potter. Alone. Always alone." His fingers brushed the copper vial in his pouch he had packed the day before. Snape's words, precise and cold, echoed, timing, the difference between a shield and ashes. Harry uncorked it with trembling hands, drank, and fire poured down his throat. His veins thrummed, his heartbeat steadied into a drumbeat of steel. The horntail's chest glowed brighter, white light searing through the cracks of its jaws. Harry's heart beat once, twice, steady as a drum. The potion coursed through him, a thrum of heat beneath his skin, a weightless calm flooding his veins. The dragon reared back and unleashed its full fury. A torrent of fire crashed down, consuming everything. The outcrop, the air, Harry. The crowd screamed. Hermione's voice cracked into a sob. Ron shouted Harry's name over and over. Neville clutched the rail until his knuckles went white, muttering, "No, no, no!" Ginny stood rigid, fists clenched, eyes locked on the inferno. Fred and George froze mid-shout, their bravado burned away. Even the professors rose to their feet, Snape with wand drawn screaming to the ministry officials. But Dumbledore put his hand on his arm, watching the scene with a smile. Arthur and the Aurors began working on suppressing the dragon. Then, a shadow in the blaze started moving. Harry. He walked forward through the inferno, robes scorched black, flames licking at his sleeves. Smoke curled from his hair, sparks fell like embers across his shoulders. But he didn't falter. His wand was raised, his eyes fixed on the nest. The fire rolled around him, breaking apart like water around stone. A stunned silence swept the arena. Gasps spread like ripples, 1,000 voices hushed into awe. Even the horntail faltered, fire choking off as it stumbled back, chains sparking. Its golden eyes widened in confusion. The flames guttered, died. Smoke choked the arena. And through it, Harry strode into the nest. The golden egg gleamed among the horntail's real clutch, shimmering with reflected firelight. He reached down, lifted it, and held it high above his head. For a heartbeat, the world was silent. Then the roar hit. It was more than applause. It was a cracking roar that shook the wards themselves. Stomping feet made the ground tremble. Cheers, shrieks, even sobs spilled together. The chaos of 1,000 people watching the impossible made real. Hermione collapsed against Ron's shoulder in relief, tears streaking her cheeks. Ron roared Harry's name like he was at the Quidditch Cup. Neville laughed shakily, clapping so hard his palms stung. Ginny's face burned with fierce pride, shouting herself hoarse. Fred and George leapt onto the bench, screaming, "That's our Harry!" Across the stands, Cedric was already on his feet, clapping, face shining with respect. Fleur stared, pale and shaken. Crum's expression was carved stone, his jaw tight, his eyes unreadable. And in the staff stands, Dumbledore's eyes gleamed with fierce pride, while Moody's mouth twisted into the ghost of a smile. His magical eye whirred, locking on Harry, and though the crowd's roar drowned everything else, Harry felt the weight of that single thought. Alone. Always alone. But in that moment, as the roar shook the sky, Harry wasn't alone at all. The moment Harry stepped back through the canvas flap, the roar of the crowd muffled to a dull thunder. The tent smelled of ash and sweat. The benches still bore the marks of the other champion's nerves. Harry staggered once, clutching the golden egg, robes still smouldering at the edges. "Harry!" Hermione's voice cracked as she barreled into him, arms wrapping tight. Ron was right behind, clapping him on the back so hard he nearly dropped the egg. Fred and George whooped. Ginny's face shone with relief. Neville grinned weakly, but looked close to tears. "Careful, careful," Madame Pomfrey scolded, bustling forward to douse the last flickers of flame from his sleeve. She thrust a vial of Dittany under his nose, tutting as though he'd tracked mud into her ward. But before Harry could even sit, the judges swept in. Dumbledore first, his eyes blazing with fierce pride. Crouch Senior, stiff and clipped, already quill scribbling on a parchment at hand. Bagman, flushed with excitement, clapping like a fan at a Quidditch match. And trailing behind them, Rita Skeeter. Her quick quotes quill was already scratching furiously, her lips curling into a satisfied smile. "What a performance!" she trilled. "Harry Potter, the boy who lived, walking through Dragonfire as if born for it. Tell me, Harry, how does it feel to outshine every seasoned champion in the field?" Harry blinked, still dazed, egg clutched to his chest. He opened his mouth, but Hermione bristled, snapping, "He doesn't feel anything right now except exhausted. Let him breathe." "Oh, but the people will want to know," Rita purred, lowering her voice with false sympathy. A 14-year-old facing death and walking out unscathed. Alone. Truly alone. Harry's chest tightened. The words echoed too close to Moody's voice. Before he could answer, Cedric was suddenly beside him, steady hand on his shoulder. "He wasn't alone," Cedric said firmly. "He had us, Hogwarts, behind him." Fleur, pale but still composed, muttered in French that it was unnatural. Crumb stood silent, arms folded, but his dark eyes burned holes into Harry unreadable. The tent filled with noise. Bagman booming about high scores. Crouch Senior insisting on official procedures. Rita trying to worm her quill closer. Hermione hissing at her to back off. Ron and the twins snapping at anyone who dared imply Harry cheated. Through it all, Dumbledore raised a hand. The noise thinned. His gaze fell on Harry. Not proud, not worried, but searching. "Well done," Dumbledore said softly, as if only Harry could hear it. "But take care, Harry. The fire you walked through today was not only Dragon's flame." Bagman was flushed with excitement, practically bouncing in place. "Spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what I call a champion's performance." He raised his wand, conjuring glittering numbers in the air. 10. "From me, of course," he added, winking at Harry. Madame Maxime's lips thinned. "Reckless," she said coolly, flicking her wand. 7 blazed in gold. "He nearly killed himself." Karkaroff gave a short, barking laugh. "Nearly? He should have. No skill, only luck and theatrics." His wand traced in 4 that hovered above the others. Ron swore under his breath. Hermione bristled. 4? Fred roared, and he walked through dragonfire. 5 at least, George bellowed. Even Crumb got a 6 for stumbling around like a... Quiet, McGonagall snapped, though her glare was firmly on Karkaroff. Crouch Sr. raised his hand. His voice was clipped, bureaucratic. This was dangerous and unorthodox, but he achieved his goal. 8. A shimmering 8 joined the others. Fudge, standing stiff beside Dumbledore, hesitated. He glanced at Rita's quill, still scribbling eagerly, then gave a politician's smile. Of course, very inspiring. 9. Gasps and cheers broke out across the tent. Finally, Dumbledore's calm voice cut through the noise. He lifted his wand, conjuring a number of his own. 9. His eyes, however, never left Harry. The scores hung above them. 10, 9, 9, 8, 7, 4. The crowd outside roared as bagmen boomed the announcement. Harry Potter with a total of 47 points, the highest score yet. The tent burst into overlapping reactions. Fleur muttered something sharp in French. Cedric clapped Harry's shoulder in open pride. Crumb scowled but said nothing. Fred and George whooped. Ron pounded Harry's back, and Hermione hovered close, whispering, Ignore them, Harry! Ignore all of them. But Harry's eyes flicked back to Moody. The scarred man leaned against the wall, mouth twisted into a grin, magical eye whirring. Harry smiled. Harry trudged up the path toward Hogwarts, the golden egg clutched to his chest. His robes were still scorched, the hem singed and curling, but the roar of the crowd from the arena seemed to echo after him, filling the cold evening air. For the first time in weeks, the looks that followed him weren't suspicious or hostile. They were admiring. Brilliant, Potter! A Gryffindor sixth year shouted, slapping him on the shoulder. You walked through Dragonfire, a Ravenclaw cried, wide-eyed. Never seen anything like it. Hands reached out as he passed, clapping his back, ruffling his hair, patting his arms. A Hufflepuff girl leaned over the banister of the steps and called, You're fearless, Potter! A group of Gryffindor first years mimed walking through fire, chanting, Phoenix spawn! Until it caught on, echoed by voices around the courtyard. Harry felt his face burn hotter than the dragon's flames had, but this time from embarrassment. Phoenix born. The name spread like wildfire, rolling down the line of students. Behind him, Cedric walked at an easy pace, his own supporters crowding around. Hufflepuffs waved their yellow and black scarves proudly, chanting his name. He smiled politely, shaking his head at their exaggerated praise. That was when Draco Malfoy pushed forward, parchment in hand. Diggory, he called, his voice carrying. Autograph? The courtyard went still, waiting for the sting in his words. But there was none. Crabbe and Goyle stood behind him, nodding eagerly, and a few other Slytherins chimed in. That was proper illusion magic, and you deserved the top score, not Potter. Harry stiffened. Cedric, however, only smiled faintly and took the parchment. Thanks, he said, signing quickly before handing it back. But Harry was brilliant too. Anyone who walks through a Horntail's fire deserves respect. A few Slytherins muttered, but still pocketed the signed slips proudly. Draco's smirk faltered, as if he hadn't expected Cedric to be so gracious. The crowd thinned as they reached the castle steps, students peeling off to their houses. Harry and Cedric walked side by side now, the egg still warm under Harry's arm. Potter? The growl came from the shadows at the top of the steps. Moody limped forward, staff thumping, magical eye spinning. He stopped directly in Harry's path, his scarred face breaking into a grim smile. You've got nerve, boy, Moody rasped, walking through Dragonfire, quick thinking too, most would have curled up and fried. His normal eye twitched, the magical one fixing firmly on Harry. That's what keeps you alive. Nerve, Instinct. Keep using it. Harry swallowed, unsure whether to be proud or unsettled. Thanks, Professor. Moody gave a sharp nod, then turned his eye on Cedric. And you. Solid illusion charms. Sharp mind, steady nerve. Hogwarts is lucky to have two like you. As Harry and Cedric crossed the entrance hall, the last of the crowd peeling off, a voice called down the staircase. Harry! Cho was descending with a pair of Ravenclaws, her dark hair loose, eyes bright. When she saw Harry turn, she slowed, letting her friends go on ahead. She stopped a step above him, smiling slightly. Honestly, that was unbelievable. Harry shifted the egg under his arm, suddenly aware of the ash on his sleeves and the sweat still plastering his hair. Unbelievably stupid, maybe. Nearly got roasted. Her smile widened, teasing but warm. Stupid? You walked through Dragonfire. I don't know anyone else who would have had the nerve. Harry rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. I'm not sure it was nerve. More like not having another option. Still counts, Cho said lightly. Then, with a playful tilt of her head. You know what they're calling you already? Harry groaned. Don't say it. Phoenix Spawn. She laughed softly at his grimace. It's dramatic, but kind of suits you. He rolled his eyes. Brilliant. As if I didn't have enough nicknames. She glanced at him for a moment longer, then said more quietly, Well, I think it's brave. Really brave. Harry's heart skipped. He muttered, thanks, hoping he didn't sound as awkward as he felt. Cedric, who had politely hung back, finally clapped Harry on the shoulder, smirking. Careful, Harry. You'll be juggling more than golden eggs soon. Harry flushed scarlet. Shut up. Cho laughed again, the sound light and easy, before slipping away toward the Ravenclaw table. Harry was still replaying Cho's laugh in his head when a slow, deliberate whistle cut through his thoughts. Fred appeared at his shoulder, smirk firmly in place. Harry, you dog. George folded his arms with mock solemnity. Honestly, didn't know you had it in you. Walking through Dragonfire and talking to Cho Chang in the same week? Careful, you'll give the rest of us an inferiority complex. Ron grinned, leaning against the banister. Reckon you looked more nervous just now than you did in front of the Horntail. Didn't think a golden egg could make you sweat. But apparently, Cho Chang can. Harry flushed scarlet. Shut it. Fred clapped him on the back. No shame in it, Potter. Bravery comes in all forms. Some face dragons. George finished smoothly. And some survive small talk with Ravenclaw's finest. Ron chuckled, shaking his head. Next thing we know, Rita Skeeter will be calling you the Casanova of Gryffindor. The twins roared at that, but Harry only groaned and tried to march ahead, clutching the egg tighter. Off to the side, Hermione had joined them, quietly, saying nothing. She kept her books hugged to her chest, her gaze fixed on the tips of her shoes, as the laughter rang out around her. Days later, the great hall dimmed. Candles floated higher, casting a soft glow. Dumbledore rose slowly from his seat, his expression grave, but his eyes twinkling with that peculiar warmth. Instantly the hall hushed. My dear students, he began, his voice carrying easily. What we witnessed days ago was both perilous and invigorating, a reminder that courage, wit, and resilience are not measured by age, but by the choices we make in the face of fire. A ripple of murmurs ran through the hall. Gryffindors sat straighter. Slytherins smirked. Hufflepuffs clapped Cedric on the back, while Ravenclaws whispered about strategy. Dumbledore raised a hand, calming the buzz. The Tri-Wizard Tournament is not a single blaze of glory, but a year-long test. And so, I should like to remind you of what lies ahead. He began to pace, robes sweeping gently. First, your classes. Yes, classes. Even amidst fire and spectacle, Essays must still be written, plants must still be pruned, and one must never forget the correct number of lacewing flies for a proper draught of living death. He shot Snape a sly glance. Snape's scowl deepened as a few Gryffindors chuckled. Second, Quidditch. His eyes twinkled, or rather, something very like it. To foster good spirit between our schools, an all-star tournament has been arranged. Beauxbatons and Durmstrang will face each other first. Hogwarts will then meet the victor. A chance, I hope, for friendly rivalry rather than hallway brawls. His gaze flicked knowingly toward the Gryffindor and Durmstrang tables, where a few students coughed and looked away. The hall erupted in cheers. Fred and George leapt to their feet, pumping their fists. Ron was already chanting Crumb's name, only to be elbowed by Ginny, who hissed, "Support Hogwarts, you prat!" Third, the "you ball." A collective murmur swept the hall, followed by squeals from the younger years and groans from the older boys. Dumbledore smiled faintly. A time for dance, for dignity, for diplomacy, and perhaps for some of you to polish shoes and egos alike. Invitations will be explained in due time. You and the partner you bring will have a splendid time, that I promise. The reactions were priceless. Hermione's quill scratched notes furiously. Ron slumped onto the table, muttering "bloody dancing," while Parvati and Lavender squealed in delight. Across the hall, Fleur preened as half the Gryffindor boys broke into hushed arguments over who might dare ask her. "And lastly," Dumbledore said, his tone softening, "the second task. At the close of the first term, our champions will face another challenge, one which will test not only their skill, but their ability to trust what lies beneath the surface." His words hung in the air, cryptic and heavy, drawing nervous whispers. Fudge interrupted, rising with a booming laugh. Yes, but let's not frighten the children, eh? Perfectly safe, all of it. The Ministry has every safeguard in place. No real danger at all." The hall fell into awkward silence. Hermione muttered, "No danger?" "He saw a dragon breathe fire on Harry." Fred shouted out, "Oi, Minister! Did your safeguards catch the dragon when it sneezed?" Laughter erupted, while Fudge turned red and sat down stiffly. Dumbledore cleared his throat, smile returning. "Yes. Well, you see, my friends, the tournament is not simply a test of champions. It is a mirror for all of us. And so, I encourage you, work hard, support one another, and above all, remember that your true test lies not in the tasks themselves, but in the kind of people you choose to be while facing them." The applause was thunderous, students rising to their feet in cheers. The Prophet, Skeeter, even the lingering bitterness of the World Cup. For one night, all of it was drowned out in excitement and anticipation. Soon after Dumbledore's announcement, Harry gathered his team in a quiet charms classroom. Dust motes drifted in the lantern light as they pulled chairs into a circle. Harry set the egg down in the middle with a heavy clunk. "Right, this thing. I've got no clue what it's for, but it's the only lead we've got. I haven't really touched it since I got it." Fred rubbed his hands together. "Excellent. A mystery object that screams when you open it. What could possibly go wrong?" George nodded solemnly. "Open it, Potter. Let's hear it." Harry looked for a clasp and felt the top snap as he turned it left. The egg exploded with an unholy shriek. The sound was jagged, like metal tearing underwater, high-pitched and awful. Ron clutched his head, nearly tipping backward. Neville yelped, hands clamped over his ears. Ginny swore and shoved the desk away. "Merlin's socks!" Fred shouted, wincing. "Sounds like Mum when George tries to cook." "Piss off!" George barked, but his voice was lost under the wail. Harry slammed it shut and silence crashed over them. For a long moment, they just sat there catching their breath. "Well," Ron said weakly, "it's official. They want you deaf for the next task." Hermione frowned, arms folded. "It's a clue. It has to be, but..." She shook her head. "I can't make sense of it." Neville looked thoughtful, but after a moment just shrugged. "Whatever this is out of my knowledge." Ginny sighed. "So, the grand plan is what, Harry? Open it, go deaf, and hope inspiration strikes." Harry ran a hand through his hair. "So, we've got nothing then?" The group exchanged glances. Even Hermione didn't have an answer this time. Harry grabbed the egg and tucked it under his arm. The weight of it was heavier than before, but at least when he looked up, 6 pairs of eyes were still on him. Supportive, determined, even if they didn't have a clue. "Then we keep trying," he said quietly, "because I don't plan on going anywhere without answers." Ron stood while stretching his limbs every which way. "Well, it's getting late." He yawned loudly enough for Hermione to roll her eyes. "Nothing sleep can't solve." Harry agreed and walked back to the common room with the group. Through the first task, the announcements and mystery of the egg, Harry was physically and mentally drained. He brushed up, changed, and was ready to coast into a mindless sleep. Harry didn't remember falling asleep. One moment he was staring at the canopy above his bed, the golden egg glinting faintly in the moonlight at the foot. The next, he was plunging into darkness, pulled downward until his feet struck cold stone. A corridor stretched ahead, narrow, damp, torches flickering green light across walls that seemed to breathe. At the far end, voices murmured. He followed each step, echoing too loudly. The chamber opened wide, fire burning low in the grate. A tall, skeletal figure stood before it, pale hands curling over the back of a chair. Harry's scar blazed hot. He didn't need to see the face to know. Voldemort. Beside him crouched Wormtail, stooped and trembling, clutching a scroll. And in the corner, half in shadow, was another figure. Ragged, hollow-eyed, his grin twisted too wide, hair hanging in clumps. He looked half mad, almost feral, and scribbled constantly onto a scrap of parchment. "He is improving," the ragged man muttered. His voice was cracked, rasping, yet eager. "Fast! Clever! Stronger every week! He adapts." Wormtail's squeak broke in. Then perhaps we should take care, my lord." "Care?" Voldemort's voice was sharp, cold as steel. "A child's tricks, Wormtail. He learns because I allow it. Every scrap of strength, every instinct sharpened, only makes him mine to break." The ragged man laughed softly, eyes wild, as though pleased. "He protects too much. That is his weakness. Always shielding, always saving. It will crush him." Voldemort turned then, and Harry felt the red gaze bore straight into him, his scar split with pain white hot. "He will come to me like a blade, sharpened and proud," Voldemort whispered almost lovingly. "And blades always shatter best when they've been honed." The fire flared suddenly, stretching upward into the shape of 2 wands clashing, light spilling between them. Harry felt the pull in his chest, something old and terrifyingly familiar. Voldemort glanced at it, curious, before dismissing it with a flick of his hand. Harry staggered back, but the chamber seemed to close in. Voldemort's voice followed him, sibilant and low, slithering into his bones. "You will stand before me, Harry Potter, and when you do, you will stand alone." The torches snuffed out. Harry jerked awake, drenched in sweat, scar throbbing so violently he thought it might split his skull. The egg gleamed faintly in the moonlight, silent and mocking. Harry lay gasping in the dark, scar pounding, the echo of Voldemort's words still rattling in his chest. He couldn't keep this one to himself, not this time. Throwing off his blankets, he grabbed his invisibility cloak and shoved the egg deeper under the bed. Within moments, he was out the portrait hole. The castle hushed but for the occasional flicker of torchlight. His feet carried him to the stone gargoyle almost without thought. "Sherbet lemon," he muttered, and the gargoyle leapt aside. The spiral staircase swept him upward. The door to Dumbledore's office opened before he could knock. The headmaster sat behind his desk, half buried in rolls of parchment. Fawkes dozed on his perch, feathers glowing faintly in the dim. Right before Harry explained his nightmare, Dumbledore held up his hand. He exhaled slowly. "You were right to come, but..." His gaze flicked toward the far wall, where a carved raven gleamed faintly. We cannot speak freely here. The Ministry has its ears everywhere." Harry frowned. "Then we need somewhere else. Somewhere safe. I need..." He hesitated, then said it firmly. "I need to talk to Padfoot." For the first time, Dumbledore's eyes softened, the faintest gleam of approval. He rose, drawing his wand. With a casual flick, the office shimmered, muffled by an invisibility charm so strong the air itself felt heavier. "Come." They walked together down through the sleeping castle. Harry realised with a start that even under the cloak, Dumbledore's own presence seemed to bend the shadows, cloaking them in deeper silence. Not a single Ministry watch wizard or patrolling official so much as twitched as they passed. Outside the gates, the night air bit cold. Harry whispered the location Sirius had written in his last letter, a craggy valley near the mountains, hidden from Muggle eyes. Dumbledore nodded once, placed a steady hand on Harry's shoulder, and with a soft crack, they vanished into the night. The cold air shifted with a crack. Harry staggered slightly, the familiar, queasy tug of apparition leaving him light-headed. Dumbledore's hand steadied him as they landed on the slope of a rocky valley. Moonlight silvered the jagged cliffs, and in the distance, a thin curl of smoke rose from the mouth of a cave. "Go on," Dumbledore murmured, his voice low. "I'll keep watch." Harry nodded, pulling his cloak tighter as he picked his way over the stones. His heart thumped hard with each step, not from fear of Voldemort, but from the desperate hope of seeing Sirius again. Inside, the cave smelled of damp earth and ash. A fire burned low, throwing shadows across the walls. Sirius sat cross-legged by it, gaunt but alert, his dark eyes lifting the moment Harry entered. "Harry," Sirius breathed, rising swiftly. "Sirius," Harry said, relief flooding through him. For a moment, he forgot the dream. Forgot the egg, forgot everything, but the sight of his godfather alive in here. Sirius gripped his shoulders, pulling him into a brief, fierce embrace before stepping back. "You look taller," Sirius said with a crooked smile. "Though maybe that's just because I'm half-starved." Harry managed to laugh, but it faded quickly. His scar still burned faintly. I had dream," he said bluntly. Sirius's smile vanished. "Tell me." Harry described the dream in detail. The damp corridor, Voldemort at the hearth, Wormtail trembling, and the ragged, hollow-eyed man scribbling notes with manic devotion. He repeated Voldemort's chilling words. Sharpened like a blade, destined to shatter, always alone. By the time he finished, Sirius was pacing, his jaw tight, while Harry sat hunched, twisting his hands. "But it's just a dream, isn't it?" Harry said finally. His voice was smaller than he meant it to be. "I mean, it has to be. It felt real, but it can't be. Can it?" Silence stretched. Dumbledore had stepped aside quietly, leaning on his staff, his eyes grave. For a moment, Harry thought they'd both say yes, of course, just a dream. But neither did. Sirius knelt down, resting a hand on Harry's knee. "Sometimes dreams are only that. Sometimes they're more. But what matters is how it made you feel. What did it tell you?" Harry shook his head. "That I'm not ready. That he's planning something. But why would I see any of it? Why me?" He looked between them, searching for reassurance. Instead, he caught something else. A flicker of understanding passing silently between Sirius and Dumbledore, like two men sharing a thought too dangerous to speak aloud. Harry frowned. What? What aren't you saying? Dumbledore's expression was calm, but his eyes were brighter, sharper. You are not alone in this, Harry. That is the important truth. Whatever Voldemort may whisper in dreams, do not mistake his lies for prophecy. Sirius added, voice firm. And if he is watching you somehow, that doesn't make you weaker. It makes him desperate. Don't give him what he wants. When they rose to leave, Sirius caught Dumbledore's gaze one more time. No words were spoken, but the weight of it settled heavily between them. Harry noticed, and for the first time, felt like the two men knew something he didn't. The fire in the cave had burned low, its embers crackling faintly. Sirius clasped Harry's shoulders one last time, his grip warm and grounding despite the chill in the air. You write when you can, Sirius said firmly. Even if it's just a line, I need to know you're all right. I will, Harry promised, his throat tight. Thanks for listening. Sirius's expression softened, though his eyes were fierce. Any time. And Harry... He squeezed once before letting go. Don't carry this all alone. You've got more people in your corner than you realise. Harry nodded, but the echo of Voldemort's words, "You will stand alone," still lingered like a shadow. At the mouth of the cave, Dumbledore stood waiting. Sirius gave him a curt nod. A silent exchange of trust passing between them. And then, Harry followed the headmaster into the cold night. With a flick of Dumbledore's wand, the air shimmered around them. An invisibility charm so strong, it seemed to bend the stars themselves. Cloaks drawn close, they stepped into the valley. Hold on, Harry, Dumbledore murmured. His hand rested lightly on Harry's shoulder, and with a sharp crack they vanished. They reappeared on a quiet stretch of lane just outside the Hogwarts gates, the forbidden forest looming darkly beyond. The night air here was gentler, the hum of magic around the wards familiar and oddly comforting. Dumbledore did not move at once. His eyes lingered on the castle towers rising in the distance, then shifted to Harry. You spoke wisely in there, he said softly, that you needed a place to speak freely. You were right. The Ministry's presence has become overzealous, Harry frowned. So they really are listening in, even to you? Dumbledore's mouth curved, though without humour. Especially to me. Minister Fudge finds reassurance in numbers, and he has stationed many of his people here. Officially to protect, unofficially. His gaze sharpened. To meddle, to measure, and I suspect to misinterpret. Harry's stomach sank. So what if they heard about the dream? About Voldemort? Then they would do what they always do with truths they fear, Dumbledore said gently. They would deny it, twist it, or use it for their own ends. That is why we must be cautious, Harry. Truth is a fragile thing in the wrong hands. For a moment they stood in silence, the castle lights glowing faintly in the distance. Finally, Harry spoke, voice low. What about the tournament? Do you think they'll interfere with that too? Dumbledore's eyes crinkled with something like tired amusement. Oh, undoubtedly. They will add rules, change schedules, make announcements. But in the end, it will still come down to you and the tasks. The Ministry can no more tame a dragon than it can tame truth. Harry almost smiled at that, though it faded quickly. His scar throbbed faintly, a reminder of what still waited in the shadows. Dumbledore gave his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. Come, the hour grows late. Let us return before Mr. Filch decides we are a band of intruders. They walked the last stretch together, under the shimmering veil of the invisibility charm, silent but side by side.